My name's Ed Piscor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Jim, I have two things, man. One, what weekend is it?
December 19th. This is our Christmas episode, Ed, and I dressed for the cause.
Very festive. Two, I want you to ask me what I read this past week.
What did you read this past week?
4 fucking issues of Wizard Magazine, Jim.
I can sympathize not at all, because so did I.
Jesus, what are we thinking?
Yeah, it's a lot of Wizard to take.
How have you been, man? Like I know your wife's been traveling, man. So you've had the crib to yourself, man. You've been keeping busy. Were you able to work double time? I know your wife is away when I get a text message at like 11 p.m.
There you go. Yes, yeah. It does. I do have different hours when she's away. It's been a good week. It's all right. Mostly getting ready for Christmas. So getting ready for Christmas, wrapping up finals. This is my winter break now. I'm full on in it. I did not expect to spend it reading so much Wizard, but so be it. This is for you guys.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's mostly getting ready for Christmas at this point, but not a bad thing. She's having a good time. Florida sunshine. I'm at home in the snow. It's been cold this week here.
We've been keeping busy. I've been keeping busy with some Kayfabe stuff, man. There was Jim Mahfood came back from Japan, and I woke up to a text like, dude, I'm back, I'm jet lagged, and it's all fresh in my mind still. Like, you want to chat soon? And I'm like, can we do it on the stream, dude? Like, I've shared all my Japanese adventures, man. Like, let's get his fresh take. There's a lot of overlap with the players involved and stuff, so getting his point of view was real fun. And then there was the announcement of Tom's book that none of us were aware of, including Tom, because the proper, Big Five New York book publisher that's putting his thing out, 10 Speed something or other, is making the correct move to involve themselves also in the direct market and have created a free comic book day comic of Tom's, Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, whatever the subtitle of that thing is.
That is not to be taken for granted either, man. I commend them for doing that.
Yes.
That is a great move. Tom talked a lot about, you guys both talked a lot about it on that episode, the value of the free comic book day. Right. I'm happy I got a free comic book day out of Image.
Yeah.
Like those are big moments, but for a book publisher to do it, I think is very astute. So I think that's a great sign for Tom and for the book.
Yeah, very smart. And the fact that free comic book day comic will be coming out at the exact time that book is showing up in the Diamond catalogs for the stores.
That is the perfect time.
It's all engineered so smartly. If he hits his marks, he's got to hit the marks and get those pages done. But once he does that, he'll be involved in the Kayfabe channel a little bit more, man. We'll have him over for book clubs and stuff, man. Because he came over when we had that conversation. It was about midnight, Jim.
Yeah, I'm aware of those hours. So maybe after he finishes, he takes a couple days and sleeps, and then hopefully gets back into regular circulation here. I know a lot of our viewers are big fans of Tom's, rightfully so. I'm a big fan of Tom. It'll be nice to bring him back. There's a lot of stuff that we've talked about, having book clubs, different subjects that I don't want to do without Tom. Mm-hmm. So it'll be awesome when he shows up. We're gonna have a list of reading for him to get into.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot I want to talk to him about.
And just even talking to him about just like other ideas of book clubs and stuff. It's like, well, at what point do we put some Kirby under the microscope, man, and see if it holds up? Let's put New Gods under there and have a conversation about that.
I'm glad you said that. If anybody hasn't seen that interview yet, I say seek it out. That I was very impressed.
One of the things that I learned.
Sorry I missed it, but very impressed by it because there were questions I wanted to come up, and they did. So well done on your part, well done on his part. But one of my takeaways is that is going to be the funnest book on earth to do promo for.
Right.
For Tom. It's going to be telling Kirby stories, things that didn't make it into the book, interesting things that he came across in his research. Like, he could do that the rest of his life. He could be a Kirby scholar after this, and it would be so much fun to just, go around and talk about Jack Kirby, because so many fans, I think, have all these different entry points. Like, he's been sending us pages, and it'll be like, hey, this is when I cover this character, and it'll be like whatever character I like or you like, and it's so awesome, and he's going to have the chance to do that for years, probably, off of this book. So that was one of my thoughts, is like, man, that's smart. it's just so smart. Like, it's not just this is fun to work on for a year or two. It's like, this will be fun to talk about forever.
Yeah, and I look forward to having some book clubs with Kirby related stuff.
Yes, for sure.
Just for the excuse to read the shit. Like, whenever we all started hanging out, we would kind of come with our stacks of books to trade and let each other check out, and we could put requests in and stuff. And every week I was like, well, can I have New Gods this week? Because I had a smattering of issues here or there. He had everything.
Yeah.
So can I get Mr. Miracle this week? And that was the last time I read those things in total. I want to read them again, you know?
Yeah, I'd be up for that.
And have that conversation about like the nuts and bolts of a Kirby comic. I think the Kayfabe crew would dig that as well, man.
Kirby's career is so vast too. Like, whatever your connection to comics is, there's always interesting points in Kirby's history and bibliography to uncover. Like, I think in a recent Wizard, we were looking at Harvey Comics.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was Boys Ranch and Fighting American, which would have been, I don't know, the 40s, maybe early 50s, something like that, like decades ago. And those crossed my path early as a reader for some reason. They had done reprints of them, and somehow I got hold of them.
They were advertised in Marvel Comics in like the mid-90s, probably when we were at our heaviest.
They're good. You
Yes.
know, it's very different Kirby than what you're used to, but they're very good comics. And so, like, there's just a huge wealth of this stuff that covers easily 4 decades. So it'll be fun, man. It'll be fun for the channel. I think it's, you know, I can't recommend reading Kirby enough. It's funny too, the stuff that gets discounted. Like, I always think of Dingbats of Danger Street.
Yeah.
One of his much lesser celebrated works. I love it. You know,
Yeah.
like, it's late 70s Kirby. So I'm with you, man. I look forward to doing some book clubs with Tom as kind of the captain on some Kirby dives.
There's one of the things about Kirby that I really like too is kind of like Hitchcock. He touched basically every evolution of comics up to a point, you know, up to Image Comics, from beginning with the comic strip, before the comic book, up to Image Comics, you know, and benefiting from creator owned, getting the royalties on, you know, Phantom Force #1. That's remarkable, man.
It's interesting how much he's in these Wizard magazines. Even we're at a point where he had died, but they still, anytime there's any kind of historical profiles, from Sandman to like horror comics, he touches. He's in there somewhere. So Tom's smart. This was a very good move.
Yeah.
I had I think a follow-up to one of the things that came up in your conversation with Tom. You guys were talking about Jack Kirby's personality, you know, and he's sort of a very, I wouldn't say hot-headed, but a passionate kind of, you know, I never met him, but, you know, like, based on what I think of as his personality and what's out there, you know, kind of this impassioned guy, right? If somebody shows up and they're pro-Nazis and anti-Captain America, he'll be down to meet them on the street to trade fists.
Right.
You know, so this impassioned guy, and you mentioned how, like, you know, he stands up to a variety of people throughout his career in anecdotes, but never really the publishers, who probably wronged him more than anybody else in his life. And my takeaway from that is it's not just mouths to feed, which was what Tom suggested, but it's also aging through the Depression.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Like, I had 3 grandparents that lived for a long time into my life, and I mean, they were permanently scarred from being alive in maybe even post-Depression time period, like just this severe time.
Yeah.
And Kirby went through that, and I think that changes your relationship to work and employment a lot.
Absolutely. And you know, my grandparents, like when they passed, we were, you know, the family has to clean out the house, and there's dollar bills in pockets and behind photographs, and like, it's just like, they didn't trust banks.
No.
Stan Lee in the Comic Book Confidential documentary says, like, his opening statement when he comes on the microphone is like, I lived through the Great Depression, and the biggest, most successful thing that you could do was just to have steady employment. Like, you were a successful guy in my eyes if you just worked steadily. And I'm sure most of those people had those same feelings, for sure, no doubt. I wanted to bring this up last week, have a little conversation about it, man. I saw this documentary on Netflix called Jack of All Trades, and it's about this kid, this guy. His dad owned like a sports card store, and he's like a voice actor and was a little kid actor in movies and shit like that. goes back home, visits his mom's house, and in like his back bedroom is just boxes and boxes of junk, including tens of thousands of trading cards, baseball cards. Now, this guy's a shit actor, and this is a documentary, but it's the most poorly acted documentary I might have ever seen. So this part, your mileage will certainly vary, and it'll probably be shitty, but it's about the speculator boom. He took these coveted, valuable baseball cards from his youth, and he took them to conventions, and not only were the conventions much more drabby than he remembered as a boy, church basements, not much traffic, but these coveted cards of his were pretty much worthless. And he visited places like Upper Deck and the different card companies. Jose Canseco's in this thing, and they get into just sort of how they took advantage of kids, essentially. And in these markets, like, obviously it's not illegal what they did, but we could say that, and I guess all corporations to some extent operate in an amoral capacity. There's speculation that, so like the big initial baseball card that created value for cards was the Honus Wagner card is the most valuable, but that's not the one that got thrown out, because that thing came with tobacco. The one that got thrown out by all the mothers in the 1950s, my pops included, was like a 1952 Mickey Mantle card. So that one at a time was like one of the most valuable, highly coveted things, because all the moms threw those shits away. So with that in mind, and my pops was in that headspace as well, when I was a little boy coming up, I had mad baseball cards, 1986, 87 Tops with the wood paneling. I had that, and they were cheap and cardboard and crappy. Now, when I started getting more heavily into comics, Upper Deck came out, and you would see those ads and shit in the comic books. There's that perception of value thing that gets people to spend premium dollars.
I remember Upper Deck. It was almost like it'd be like Apple packaging their stuff in deluxe.
Like
it had a brand associated that was like top, high level, top shelf.
Yeah, it wasn't shitty cardboard.
Yeah.
It was like white cardstock, foil pack, which was never done. It was usually wax packs. And the card that they were pushing that created the monthly Beckett price guide sales was the 1989 Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. It was, and it might not have even been technically a rookie card. I don't know if he was with the Mariners or if he's in the Mariners garb, because the way they describe it in the documentary is they made this card, and they made it card number 1 before he even signed. So I don't know if he's like, we all know the image, but I don't know if that hat is a Seattle hat or not. Regardless, they talk with people from Beckett, and those people are talking about like, those like early 90s greatest years of our lives, in the same way that Wizard has in the price guide the blue, the
right.
magenta to denote changes in fluctuation in value. Beckett had arrows, and the mandate was that like arrows sell magazines, man. So you got to make sure you create a lot of flux in the collector market and create all this like inflation in value or deflation, and you got to keep people buying these monthly Beckett price guides, But there was speculation, this rare Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. There's speculation that they just ran off full sheets of these Ken Griffey Jr. cards, and they go to Tops, and they get nuts and bolts and nitty gritty on how a set of cards is put together. It's a sheet with 100 cards. That's sort of like our 8-page signature at the printing press, Then they cut them up. Then like their master files, they destroy, because they don't want somebody.
They can't bootleg.
Exactly. So they destroy that stuff. Upper Deck was not as forthcoming in the documentary or anything like that. I couldn't help but think of our Wizard coverage, and frankly, like CGC, all these like these small industries that really don't create much of a blip in our GDP to the point where the government is necessarily paying any attention, and how you really can manipulate. There's no SEC looking over anybody's shoulders. Why not take money from unsuspecting kids who are saving all of their lawn mowing money and paper route money to try to get their hands on a Ken Griffey Jr. rookie, which, by the way, you could go on eBay, buy the set for like $20.
Yeah,
that thing sold for $500 in 1991.
Yeah, very similar to comics. And comics have histories of bootlegs, right? Like, yes. I think famously there's a run of Turtles #1 bootlegs, Cerebus bootlegs. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's paper, and some of that stuff that's just black ink on paper, like, you could bootleg that at any printing press. 50,000 printing presses in the United States. You could walk into any of them and bootleg a black and white comic perfectly. I heard of a guy who bought a Hulk 181. It's a guy who buys collections, grades them, sells them, stuff like that. So dealer, and he sent a 181 off to get graded, CGC, and it came back that it was bootleg. Like the dealer couldn't detect it, but according to the graders, it wasn't legitimate. So I don't know how they determined that, if it was something egregious and stood out, or I don't know. But somehow they decided, like, this is not a legitimate copy, and it makes me think, like, it's the easiest thing in the world. I have comics in my collection that are bootlegs, that I know are bootlegs. Like, I have a Thrasher comic to have a complete run. I couldn't find it. Somebody had it, and they're like, I'll send you photocopies. So they did. I trimmed it. It fits in the collection. You would be able to tell. It's not like I'm trying to pass that off, but it's just so easy to make those things. I bet a lot of them go through CGC and aren't detected, because it's not that hard of a process. And if you're a printer, it's really not a hard process.
I have a story to go along with that. But tomorrow, Friday, I think we're going to put live the Jason Hamlin shoot interview.
I'd like to bootleg half of his collection.
Yeah.
Especially with like, once you get to mini comics, literally there's no way you would be able to tell if it's a bootleg or not.
This is Jason Hamlin, retailer to the stars, one of the guys that we immediately go to whenever we hit comic conventions. Before the doors open and everybody else could get in there, we head over to Jason Hamlin's, dig through his stuff, man, pull giant chunks out of his dollar bins. But he was talking to us about how these restorers who prepare things for CGC, this is not on the record on the interview, but when we were digging around, people will, there are certain staples that were used in like a DC comic in the 1970s, and these guys know what those staples are. So if you go on eBay, these are vintage staples that probably cost $200-300 for like the little gimmick, because these guys are buying reasonably shitty slabbed Hulk 181s, cracking them open, pressing them with an iron or whatever kind of alchemy they use to like get some creases out, putting like fresh staples in from that exact vintage, and resubmitting it and getting higher grades.
Yeah, we saw this. This is a thing all around. So this is a common art practice. Like, if you're in a museum or something, museums have internal departments for restoration and all this stuff. It's a whole industry, but it's kind of small and behind the scenes, right? Of different solvents to clean stuff off paintings, off sculptures, off exteriors, whatever the case may be. And so it makes sense, like, as the collecting thing in comics becomes more legitimate with graders and stuff, you would have these restorers as well. And there's lots of this. Like, it extends to things like pressing. But we've heard other dealers talk about this, where they have like a box of incomplete Golden Age comics. And I don't know that they're in the practice of restoring, but it feels like that's what those parts are. Hamlin showed us an Alex Toth, I can't remember the title, Sinister House of something Secrets.
The one with his biggest chunk of comics.
Yeah, the biggest, longest Alex Toth, and he's like, it's missing a centerfold. So it's sitting there, but what do you do with it? To sell it, it's in the worst state because it's literally missing pages. But if you were to come across one, it's all beat up, you pull the centerfold out and you reconnect it or whatever. I find that stuff interesting, and it's not that different in my mind. Like, whenever I'm hand binding hardcover books, it's of the same thing. It's making, it's restoration, it's putting something back together that for some reason has become incomplete. I like all of that stuff. I think it's interesting that exists in comics. I don't know, man. Like, that's a hobby. Like, I don't know how anybody could pay bills with that. In the art world, you can, like there are legitimate, you go to school, you're a restorer, you know about acid contents and all of this stuff and archival materials. But when it gets down to something like comics, I don't know, man. If you're restoring like a Detective 27, maybe you make a few bucks, but I think it's more of a hobby than anything else. But it's one I can kind of understand. Like I said, I like making stuff, and I feel like they're connected, especially that authenticity. Like, I've done some weird things like the ad zine where it's on newsprint that I'm tracking down in different places to approximate old newsprint. So I do understand the fun of that. Once you start applying it to, now I'm going to charge more for this copy, or I don't even know if it's immoral. If you are restoring this stuff and you're using authentic staples, I don't know. Like, that's not really a bootleg.
No,
I
not
don't
at
know where
all.
that stuff resides.
Yeah. Well, they have their own culture, and we learned some lingo and stuff. But Hamlin flat out said, like, if you do like the color retouching, like that'll half the value to these people because this is all Fugazi. You know what I'm saying? Like, we could be nihilistic and say that this dollar bill in my pocket is Fugazi, but if we're going to have a conversation about consensus of humanity, are they going to value this or that? Like, I can't have that conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that gets scary. I used to listen to everything after the economy had its little tumble in '08.
Yeah.
And that was the takeaway where, like, you start putting together all the pieces of that, and it's like all of this debt is just agreed upon.
Yeah.
Like, it's so artificial, and if enough people were to say, no, we're out on that.
And that's it.
There's no particular value to that money except the value we agree on.
One of the things that has always kept me company while at the drawing table is I think the Smithsonian Magazine, I forget exactly who, but there are these lectures called The Teaching Company, and they cover basically every subject matter that you can imagine that you would want to kind of like involve yourself in deeper. And I listened to ones about like the history of America, and that's a popular one. And then they have to get into money and economics and how it is that we all sort of like came to this place,
right,
where it began with barter system and just like nails were valuable. I'll trade you like a dozen nails for like a loaf of bread.
You'll hear people like in the old days, whenever a house would burn, you would go in and pick out the nails.
Oh, interesting.
Because like the metal, you're not a metalsmith. You know what I mean? Like before that, it'd be like wooden pegs and things that would be holding this stuff together. So like the nails were about,
Yeah, you couldn't go to Heckinger's.
Yeah.
Heckinger's. I have one bootleg story, dude, that I don't know that I ever got on record, but it's a pretty good one, man. Stop me if I told this on a thing. But it involves Hip Hop Family Tree #1 and the fact that I saw copies in people's hands of Hip Hop Family Tree #1 before I or Fantagraphics, the publisher, got a singular copy of Hip Hop Family Tree #1. And it was businessmen in Japan. I mean, no, in China. They were in Shanghai on business, American dudes. And they were showing the stuff off on Twitter, of all places, tagging me in it. And I'm like, hey, I didn't even get a copy of this yet. I've been so stoked waiting to like see this, and I'm like, I don't even have a copy of this thing. Send it off to Gary Groth, like, hey Gary, man, I think our shit's being bootlegged. Maybe you could just like bring this up to the printer and maybe just embarrass them to get a discount on like book 2, because I did book 1 and like 6 months later or 7 months later, book 2 was ready to go. That like the glancing blow and then the knockout punch. You know what I'm saying? So he sent them a note and all that. Took 2 months maybe. Got a reply from Gary, just like, hey man, this is in case you were wondering, here's what happened. Now, the printer is not a paper mill. They have to order paper, right, and it was very special paper. So they order, the big round fucking toilet paper tube of this special paper.
Couple tons worth.
And they have to create some formulas. Their internal investigation squad. It takes X amount of this paper to make a volume of Hip Hop Family Tree. You're on the books. Fantagraphics is on the books for X volume. So it should be X amount of paper, and this is what we have left over. So wherever the disparity is, you could figure out, right, and extrapolate the amount of copies that are out there that are unaccounted for. and there was about 500 unaccounted for copies that showed up in record shops in the surrounding region of the print shop of the printing plant.
500's a sizable amount.
Somebody made some ducats, man.
Yeah, that's pretty good. These stories are always horrible, although that one sounds like it worked out all right.
Oh, I like whatever.
How flattering.
No, totally.
It's not like everybody's stuff was getting bootlegged out of that press.
Now, obviously, in retrospect, totally cool. At the time, Eddie P was broke and was like banking on this, so it hurt at that moment. And I'm just like, well, I hope that there's not maybe thousands of these, and I hope that there's not like. It would suck if these start showing up on eBay or something, but I'm living okay.
Is there a Chinese edition?
You know what? There is not. There's not. Nope.
Yeah.
The Chinese edition are those 500 copies that were floating around before anybody else could get them things, man.
That's funny. Talking about collectors.
Yes.
One of the videos we posted recently is Warren Bernard's collection, a tour through his collection. He's been on. We had him on a shoot interview. He showed off some stuff, put it under the microscope, looking at some of his comics. And then after SPX, graciously, he brought us through his collection, let us record some of that, shared some of that. A lot of comments coming up about how much we didn't get into, because it is an absurd collection. Incredible. But that just went up. So that's a pretty fun video. Again, if anybody hasn't seen that yet, one of the best collections I've ever seen.
Incredible.
And Warren is a great tour guide. He's a better tour guide in his collection than I would be in mine, because the stuff that he has, I would never appreciate or even know what I was looking at half of it if he weren't there to kind of, explain a context for what we're seeing. That turned out great. That's before we upgraded some equipment, so there's probably some rough edges, but I didn't know how that was going to work, and I think it worked really well. But Warren's the star of that show, and it's incredible. And one note on that amazes me is that's after SPX weekend, which has to be the most exhausting thing in that guy's life. It's exhausting in my life, and I do a fraction of what he does that weekend. And man, he was up and at 'em for that tour. So many thanks to Warren, but it's going to start a series of some collections that we've got to visit recently. So
yeah, for sure. So we're going to put up the Hamlin thing soon. And that's going to introduce the people who have never bumped into the retailer to the stars. They're going to get a good introduction. It's a fascinating conversation. The guy knows a lot, and we've never gotten this aspect of the comics industry on the record.
I realized after we shot his interview, the first time that I became aware of him, he was working some other booth at Heroes.
Yeah. And
he had like a couple of crates or boxes underneath the table that was like, what he had brought or whatever. And I just kept going back to those.
Right.
And afterwards, Chris Pitzer, who's friends with him, they're both in Richmond, explained to me who he was. And then, in future shows, he'd have his own booth and his own setup and everything. And we got to know him. But I realized, before I had any idea who he was, in all of Heroes, I found 3 boxes under a table in that whole show that was like, these are my boxes.
Yeah.
And it was Jason Hamlin.
So we're gonna go through just the tiniest glimpse of his collection. It was a crazy weekend. He was very gracious in giving us his time because he was under the weather. Got us all sick too. But spent a good hour with things that you've only read about in interviews, man. When you hear about Chester Brown started in mini comics, let's take a look at some of those. When you hear that Julie Doucet, Dirty Plot started as mini comics, you've never seen those. Let's take a look at some of those.
I bet he has the biggest collection of Fort Thunder on the planet. Because the guys that were in Fort Thunder, I don't think they archived their stuff in a significant way, and certainly not everybody's stuff from that. And he has, again, like you say, Ed, things that I would read about I'll never see again in my life, probably. That was an awesome one, and I'm excited I'd be able to put Warren Bernard on one hand and Jason Hamlin on the other, because they're two extraordinary collections, and the overlap is completely non-existent. Right. It's a bunch of stuff that I've never seen before in my life and didn't even know existed in many cases, and then it's a bunch more stuff that I've never seen or heard of or whatever. That's incredible. It's just how vast comics are, that you can really go in these rabbit holes and find this is a whole new wing. This is a whole new museum of stuff.
And that is the beauty of Warren and the video that we did with him as well, because he isn't Great Gatsby. He's not like these collectors who buy bananas duct taped to a wall. Any piece that you point to, he could wax about for a long time. And people were criticizing, yo, Ed, why are you rushing him? I was rushing because you wouldn't.
How many? Did we have 4 hours or something there? Like, it's rushing in that you could have spent a week or two there, but maybe our longest video. So kind of one angle is being rushed. The other angle is like, man,
people stuck with it too, man. I just saw the amount of like the average amount of time that people stick with the video. It's almost in total, and there have been comments from people who like. This one guy said that he hit play when his wife like left to go to the store, and she came back later. Was like, that's still on. He's like, it's 2.5 hours.
I love
what are you
it.
talking about?
That's
It's 2.5 hours long. Of course it's still on.
I salute all of you that are watching it all, because it really is comics ed, man. It's incredible. It's incredible. And he is a great collector in that he's tracking a lot of that stuff down himself. He's finding it himself. He has stories for all of that, like how this came into his possession, where he found them. And it's interesting to get the perspective of, collecting for, I don't know how long he's been at it, maybe 20 years, like earnestly collecting, but how these different sources sort of dry up. Use bookstores and things where you used to be able to find a lot of this stuff, and now it's like, you don't anymore, like everything kind of goes through those phases. I see it in stuff that we collect where, 80s black and white books or 70s Bronze Age comics used to be $1 everywhere, and now they're hard to find.
Yeah. Like we've the gift and the curse of Cartoonist Kayfabe is that we probably highlighted some stuff that we probably should have made sure that we secured
Yes,
before we mentioned it, man, because those prices are going up for certain
frequently,
things.
Whenever I'll see something come up, if it's something from your collection, and it's like, I need to track this down before we post this video.
Yeah. So I've been putting pencil to paper, doing a lot of ink streams and stuff, and I got 22 pages of issue 1 of Red Room together, which was a suitable enough chunk to make another video. If you don't mind, I'll play it right here. Red Room, Chapter 1, Part 2, Trigger Warnings, all of them. Davis and Brianna invite you all to a lunchtime gathering at the Still Valley Fire Hall to honor and celebrate the lives of Dolores and Haley Fairfield. This concludes our funeral services. Drive safely. I'm sorry it's a little late, Father. I'll make up for it on Sunday. You've always been a good boy. Are they serving chicken for lunch? They're in a better place, Fairfield. You hear about Jane and those opioids? Yep, tragic. Time heals all wounds, Davis. See you at the hall. So I've heard. Thank you. All part of God's plan. Everything happens for a reason, Uh-huh. Hey, champ, I made Xeroxes of my reports from that night so that I'd have that drunk driving piece of shit's address on hand. McDougal and I would love to pay him a visit sometime. You just say the word, champ. See you over at the thing. I'm sick of them all treating me like a baby. I'll be taking the SATs in a week. I could vote now. I'm old enough to go to war. Don't they get it? Daddy, what the heck are we supposed to do now? I'm all ears, kiddo. Pa, no more.
Stop the begging. It's unbecoming.
Cold, so cold. Help.
It all checks out. I think they're telling the truth. They're not part of any 3-letter agency that I know of. We've been breached by a couple of woke environmentalist bloggers.
Was it pa-ha? Cold.
The guard who brought you here was named Thomas Reynolds, and he served our family loyally for almost a decade. Not only that, he'd been exiled socially for past crimes that even caused his own family to turn their backs on him. Thomas had no one but us. It's not easy to find help with such unique qualifications, and we turned him into hamburger patties. Do you know why? It's because he was the only witness who knew for certain that you were here. Horace, cut their heads off and put them on ice. Crowley and Osiris will personally deliver them back where they came from. Maybe that will keep the inevitable investigation far away from us.
I'll feed their bodies to the cows once I'm finished playing.
Taylor and her mom are here, Dad. I'm not sure I should go with them. This week will go by in a breeze, Bree. 1 minute, Mrs. Fetzko. I need to take some time to get the cabin in order. Plus, I won't put up with you missing any more school until I see you in that cap and gown. Love you. Call me if there's any trouble and I'll race back home, okay, baby? Don't forget to take your pills, Daddy. Be good. You too. Brianna's growing into a lovely young lady, Davis, huh? We have our mother to thank for that, Miss Betty. That's for sure. Have a good day, Miss Betty. Cunt. Yes. Do it for me, baby. Yes. Little expensive, but worth it. There, now hold that torch on its tits until they turn to ash. Aw, crap. Hello, mistress.
You haven't been to one of our events in some time, Dominic. Is the honeymoon over?
No, mistress. I'm just, curbing the hobby. A little to save some money for the holidays.
I'll get to the point. What news do you have for me about that case that we're paying you so handsomely to represent?
Most of the evidence against the kid is sealed, but I should have a better understanding of things when I visit him next week. Do you live nearby a highway, mistress?
Shut up. Lastly, I'm expecting that new Trojan horse virus, the one from your recent sextortion case.
Sure. We can merge it with your software and distribute it in a banner ad on the dark web anytime you wish.
Deliver me some exciting new blood, and there'll be a hefty commission in your Bitcoin purse. We're finished. You could go back to wasting those Bitcoin in Poker Face's red room.
Don't remove your avatar just yet. Business.
Their proactivity is murder on my ulcers and hemorrhoids.
Thought we'd surprise you, Sisty. Did we do good?
Osiris, were you a good boy for your little brother?
We dropped those heads off in Portland and figured we'd scoop them up on the way home.
May I do the honors?
Crowley, Osiris didn't drive well on his meds, did he?
I can't wait. Hook! Hazard Paleface, did we do good? Oof. He may have shot himself. Bloody disgusting.
You made sure to obey the speed limit, Crowley? No one told you? Good traffic cops out west.
Everybody covered up? Ah! Oh, I'll never get used to this, mistress.
Missed you, Hazard.
Did you goons at least lock up my house after blindsiding me? Junkies took all my records last time. Some rare stuff. I'm hungry, mistress. Can we eat first?
We'll have you back home in no time, darling. Set the table for dinner, Osiris.
Let's make some art before we feast.
Your audience waits, bud.
No skin showing.
Hazard Paleface, hazard, yay! Settle down, Osiris.
And we're streaming live in 3, 2, 1. Ugh, its skin's so slippery. Let's see what we can do. And cut. The stream is dead. You don't sound very happy.
0.072 Bitcoin, about $520.
Did my best. I surely don't want to upset you, mistress, but don't you kind of sort of think they're partially to blame?
Not another of your Jewish banking conspiracies, I hope.
Not the customers. These creatures. I think the audience would show up in a big way if I cut down some creeps who look like their bosses or their wives.
Or it could be what I've mentioned in the past. Eye trauma doesn't play well in red rooms historically. It's too visceral. They all tune out.
Hazard. Supper's almost ready. Wash your handies. You know Paleface is right. We could use some fresh meat on the chopping block.
Half correct, Horace. Our business operates much like mainstream pornography, and old performers lose value.
Can't we just put him in a new outfit and gimmick?
We've done that a few times with them, but the audience doesn't buy it.
The artist is still the artist.
Sissy, I wish we could come up with a safer way to retire these old dogs.
You're going to break Osiris's poor, fragile heart.
It needs to look like a heroin overdose when you drop him off Crowley. And Horace, if Osiris discovers the truth, I'll use your corpse as a barrier between me and him. Let's head down.
And I said wrecked him, it nearly killed him.
I don't get it, but I still think you're so funny, Hazard. You're the bestest.
Hellface, it's time to go home, darling.
Sure thing. Thanks for those car sickness pills earlier, mistress.
We're confident you'll be administered the perfect dose this time. Count backward from 100, please.
Sissy, does Hazard have to leave so fast? We was gonna play some Sega.
To be continued.
So just even in completing this video and like taking a look at it with fresh eyes, one of the beauties of being a singular person making the comic is that you could change things as needed, and you have nothing but time when you're drawing these pages. You know, it's taken me a couple months to get these 22 pages together, and my mind is just like racing, completely invested in like the world and the story. And it like occurred to me on some of the last pages that I put together, like there might be a better way to wrap up this one issue. So today is Thursday. We're recording this thing. I'm going to edit this kayfabe, do maybe a little bit more kayfabe business tonight. But for the bulk of the rest of the weekend, I'm going to kind of like re-engineer like the last 10 pages to try to make like the ultimate kind of introduction into this like depraved world. You know what I'm saying? And that's an advantage that you get when you're one person making the thing rather than being a part of a machine.
I think about that a lot because I used to obsess over every detail, and I realized like you just need to have the ending in place and then start drawing it. And like you said, it's nothing but time. You'll think of something better if you're capable of coming up with something better, you will think of it in that course and then just be open to making it better.
Yeah.
You know, you can change this stuff along the way, and especially if it's not drawn yet, you can easily change it along the way.
There's one page that I'm going to redraw
Well,
that I think it's just going to be more effective.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, that happens too. I can remember reading Dan Clow's interviews where he'd talk about that, like having either the pages up where you would see them every day, but keeping that list because it's that extra 5% at the end that really makes the stuff sing. And once it's in print, it's in collected book editions, like it's forever then.
Yeah.
So like that extra 5% of, you know, redrawing a page or whatever, it is the difference of like this is a much more substantial work as a result. So that makes total sense to me. And that was a big breakthrough for me, even on like inking pages, because they would be roadblocks. They would be things that would stop my progress, where it's like this panel isn't worked out yet, but these other ones are. Start inking the ones that you're sure of, because you'll think about it, you know.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it does free up a piece of your mind to do it. But I spent years coming to that point of like, remove whatever's stopping you from going forward. Like, you got to overcome that. And I've gotten much better at it for that reason of like, go. You know, like you're going to spend 4 months drawing this thing. You'll think of a better page 32 in that time if you're capable of thinking of it. Like, don't wait to start on page 1 until you have 32 figured out.
Yeah, I would like to get like, you know, do like a Family Feud kind of survey with a bunch of cartoonists and see and come up with some data on that exact thing that you described, because in my mind it feels like the kind of roadblock of like a young cartoonist, but maybe there are plenty of young cartoonists that don't have that. Like, it's just like in our experience, that was my experience too, where I would just like sit there and just like stare at something or just like keep erasing and almost like to the point where the integrity of the paper is compromised and like good luck inking on this thing. Right. After you now it's one ply.
Yeah, and it just doesn't. That never worked well for me. Even if I would get to the point of like, fine, I'm just going with this version of it. It's not like that yielded the good result. The good result was get it out of your head. Think about this other, ink the first tier or whatever part is ready for it.
It becomes that meditative state. It becomes, you create the situation by kind of like knowing what the problem is and doing other things. You are creating the situation of the cliche of like, the good ideas come to me in the shower. Like, the good ideas come to you when you're not taxing your brain, hyper focusing on this one issue, not seeing the forest for the trees and all of that, man. So you are inducing that by just doing other stuff on the page, or just in life. Run the fucking vacuum cleaner, and maybe something will come to mind.
Yeah, there's a lot of these tricks.
Yeah.
I used to do the work up to that sticking point, or if you're prepping for the next day, like load that into your brain right before you sleep.
Yeah.
You know, reread that thing or read the pieces that are necessary for the next day's script or whatever that problem is.
I like that, dude, because sometimes you will dream about it. And
especially like the last 2 weeks of finishing a project when it's just literally 24 hours a day in your head.
One of my strategies for writing is to do exactly what you described at the beginning of a day, and then live my life. Go out with friends, go shopping, play video games, hang out with people, but it's in there, and then come home like say 7 at night, and then it just flows, you know.
So I dig these videos a lot that you've made, 2 of them now.
Yeah.
I think they're incredible, and a million reasons why they're great. One is obviously sharing the work, but from the creator's standpoint, it's seeing it in a different light.
It is.
And that's so valuable. Like, I always will tell students or whatever, like, you need to figure out a way to be as objective as possible, which is impossible to some extent, but that's why artists will turn a work upside down. Or if you're working on screen, print it out. It's just seeing it in a different way, almost tricking yourself into a fresh set of eyes, because you stare at this stuff for hours and days sometimes. It's impossible. So you have to do something different. And it feels like making a video, I mean, you're reading dialogue. It really is a way to, like, let's look at this thing from a very different angle here.
And the dialogue that is on these videos ain't necessarily the dialogue on that page. It's almost dictaphone or something where I'm like, oh, this is a better way to say that. Like, when I say this out loud, it feels a little bit clunky. It lacks that iambic pentameter, you know what I'm saying, man? So it's like, it just flows a little bit better. So that's changing. And the idea of drawing a fresh page in there is, there's a section of the video that is not going to be in the comic. I wanted to make the video anyhow because I like these versions. I like sharing this stuff. It's
a very cool draft.
It's an exercise of me being an open book to the creative process. Doing the streams of inking provides yet another kind of like point of view. Just seeing it up on a screen in almost like thumbnail stage as I'm putting it together, I'm making clarity decisions by seeing it like that, to just try to make the thing read better.
Yeah.
So there are all these like stages, and the ultimate thing will be the book, and it's not going to be what's in the video necessarily, man. A lot has changed. It's a really fun project to work on. It's an experiment. I'm playing with the house's money a little bit, so I'm willing to like take this chance and put it all out there and share it all during the production stage. The market will let me know if this was a smart thing to do or not, and if it is, I keep it rocking. If it's not, then I'll just be a little bit more. I'll be more standard with future works or something.
I dig it a lot. One thing I thought about watching this second video and sort of seeing comments and stuff underneath it, and knowing like you're over 2/3 of the way through this first one. That's incredible.
First issue.
Right. First issue. It makes me think, like, at the end of the first issue, are you going to be making print dummies? Are we going to see that version then? Because that's something I always get excited for. Like, when I finish a draft, it's like I have to go to Kinko's or whatever and print off just myself and assemble it because I want to see it in that physical format. So I'm excited if that happens. The other thing that stood out to me is Hazard Pellface. Like, his whole arc in this second video that you posted makes me think of like wrestler gimmicks, because they're talking about his numbers are down. He doesn't seem very enthusiastic, like he used to be. Apparently maybe he has a substance abuse problem that's taking some of his energy away from it. But they talk about the gimmicks, like, well, he's shifted gimmicks a couple times. Like, we might be getting to the end of what this guy can do. If this were Cartoonists, we would all have his fate. Like, so many of us don't mix the stuff up, or we don't take into account, like, okay, this thing didn't sell. What am I going to do different in the next project? And to me, like, guys will mix up process sometimes. They do very little promo. Like, that's just not a thing most cartoonists I know do much of.
Right.
So if you're active on social media for most cartoonists, that's it. What else do you want me to do? I feel like that's one of the most radical parts of this is, like, from a promotional standpoint, what you're doing with this. And you've done interesting promo for several of your projects. This is really fascinating promo. Like, this is really something different that I haven't seen before. And it's like you say, the market will tell you if this is the right direction or, if some of it works or not. But wow, if you were that character, like, you are really mixing it up here.
Right.
Every cartoonist, like, we can all do this better, but much better.
Absolutely. Like in super early Cartoonist Kayfabes, we were having conversations, and I sort of said, like we get the comics industry that we deserve, and as a crew, there's so much room for opportunity to do things, to weave people in. Whenever we had the conversation with Ben Mara last week, And I mentioned, with Fantagraphics, like said something like, for every one book of X creator that you publish, you got to publish 2 Ben Maras. And I actually came around with like X creator because they are bringing a new audience to comics. So it's like their value is that. I've sat next to them and freaking saw the crowd that they pulled in that had nothing to do with the rest of like the Comic-Con per se, but maybe they will fuck with comics a little bit. So there's like that aspect. There's the promotional aspect. It's one of the things that McFarlane has excelled at, to like thrust him in the sort of economic stratum that he enjoys, because he had those thoughts about like getting the work out there from early on. What are you guys doing to promote this thing? In one of the Wizard interviews, like Neil Gaiman mentioned doing that Alice Cooper thing from Marvel, and hearing through the grapevine from some reporter who eventually was able to contact him, because this is pre-internet, that they were trying to get in touch with him through Marvel for months, but Marvel has a policy of not helping to promote freelancers.
Unbelievable.
Incredible.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, these are giant issues.
And by the way, like when I did my thing with Marvel, I read that Neil Gaiman interview when I was a little boy. I got a publicist because I knew that the company was not going to be promoting a thing done by a singular person. Get the fuck out of here. Like, why would they do something like that? That would be bad business. And they have scar tissues from that other company that took, 15% of their market share back in the 90s.
Yeah. All of this, I think, is good conversation.
Yeah.
And it's
have it.
It's not limited to those guys either. Like when you're describing this, selling comics to a non-comics audience, I'm reminded of a recent Milestone Comics profile in Wizard where they kind of talk about that, and it makes me think of like Hart D. Fisher, publisher of Boneyard Press, that was doing Howard Stern versus Rush Limbaugh comics. Those are selling to people that aren't buying other comics.
Yeah, and he had no problem being the heel on the Donahue Show, Jenny Jones, and all of that stuff, and he accepted that with a smile. He cried all the way to the bank. Yes. Like, okay, man, I'll let you guys bark at me for an hour, man, and then I'm gonna go home and fucking sell a bunch. It's kind of like whenever all that shit came out, like whenever like people were harshing on Carnes, and then he hit us up. It was like, I just sold more books than I ever did at once.
Yes.
Man, so no big deal.
It's very, very true. But from an industry standpoint, it frustrates me that we don't have some kind of, like I always say, comics just aren't an industry because we don't have the mechanisms in place that an industry has in terms of promo and stuff, even just recognizing what is happening in the industry. So these, you're very much on your own on this kind of stuff. Even when you're working with Marvel and you're hiring your own publicist, It's like you have to view it that way, I think, if you're going to succeed in comics today, and even in the past couple decades. Like I think the 90s were the same deal, like from the stuff we've been reading and going through. It's like you sort of have to fend for yourself on this front, and a lot of people don't want to.
No, and you should, but if you don't, that's fine, because I know my creative shortcomings and all of that, but I'll still be more successful. You know what I mean? I will be more successful than more talented people because I will sacrifice a little bit of that time at the sketchbook, doing administrative duties and mastering business and creative. That has always been my mindset. In interviews, I'm on the record saying that like I'm not a part of the comics industry because like I'm willing to hustle, and like do my own thing. Always have been. If you look in other businesses, it kind of works that way too. Like Jay-Z got to the point that he did because he had no gatekeepers. Like the fewer hands that you could cut out of the pie means the more that you get. Simple math, man. So if you could get some administrative back-end stuff together, figure that part out, a chunk of like just even doing the channel was in my mind, knowing that I have this studio edition book coming out and it's going to be a $150 book, and I've never lost $1 for a publisher in my life. all my shit is profitable. I took this as a big challenge, and it's like, well, let me do what I can. Part of the idea of the channel is like create a situation where I could show this off in words and pictures, which seems to be a more attractive distribution mechanism for information to human beings. And just doing that 1-day sale and selling like half the print run of the signed and numbered edition proves that we're sort of on the right track.
Ed, I had another question about the Red Room videos. So, and this comes up because I'm starting to get Plain Jane reviews.
Yes.
So I'm going to kind of tie this together. Does the language that comes back help you shape what you're making? Language by like live streams when people are commenting or comments under the videos?
No, it doesn't. I frankly try to ignore a lot of that. I think you approve most of those comments, man. That said, if you, when this camera's off, say something, that's going to inflect itself upon me. It's about choosing your sources, like, and I don't know who, Demon Skull 666 is. You know what I'm saying? I don't know that guy,
right?
But I know you, and I have changed certain things by giving it to friends to read, and they can't help but speculate. And if they're wrong, I know I'm on the right track.
I might have phrased this a little bit wrong. An example of something, I'm thinking more of how you describe the work as you move on to promo. So like one example would be Splatter Plank came up early on when you were talking about this stuff, and it was something we didn't know that phrase. We were familiar with the concept, but once that shows up, it's like, oh yeah. Now you can use Splatter Plank as one of the words that would reference, how to describe this or how to contextualize this as you push it out into the world. For mine, it came up, one of the reviewers wrote this sentence about Plain Janes, and it's some language that I would not have used on my own, but now plan to maybe open my Carnegie Talk with it. The girls form a secret club dedicated to fighting suburban apathy with guerrilla works of art scattered around their small town. So I like secret club. I would have never said that.
That's a good word.
Like everybody understands that.
You think about like language and stuff, and it's like the word secret is a powerful word. It's intriguing, and it makes people listen.
I think it's a good description. If I had thought of it, I would have said it. And now I'm going to say it because somebody else thought of it.
They definitely went to J school, whoever wrote that, for sure. Keep going.
Well, no, that's it. It's just that one particular sentence. But like I'll see these pieces, and it is, like I'm starting work on the Carnegie Talk that I'm doing in January.
Yeah.
And part of it is Plain Jane's promotion, but I've talked to the organizers too. The other half is sort of just how I got to that point, so some back history. And one, it's fun to do these talks. It's something that forces you to, I guess, contextualize what you've done. The first one I remember ever doing was, I think in 2009, it was a CCS visit. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about leaving comics at the time, and it was like the first time I sat down and like went through everything I had done, or at least, a lot of what I had done. Because like, when do you ever stop and look back?
Yeah.
Never. Yeah. Except whenever it's time to like, okay, I got to pull some slides up and, talk about it. So it's kind of fun for that. But part of it is like, how do you talk about this stuff in a way that makes sense to what it is? And makes sense to a reader, as opposed to like we're talking shop and describing techniques and tools and stuff, which every cartoonist loves to do, but to a person that's just reading it, it's gibberish, it's jargon, it's jargon, it's terrible. So that came up in one of the reviews somebody posted, and it was like, wow, that's really a great phrase. I will keep that phrase. That'll go forward in my language. There's been nothing like that. On my front. The Splatter Plank thing was my own discovery when I was reading about Clive Barker, and then I say the term, this has always happened to me, by the way, because I always hang out with older people, so I'm like the young naive fuck who discovers the Ramones on his own, and it's like, there's this band called the Ramones, they're fucking awesome, and they're like, yeah, and like that was that with the Splatter Plank thing, where I'm like, I discovered this term, and everybody's like, yeah, and then I'm like, well, why didn't you fucking tell me? Right.
I'm going in this direction and like all this, like, why didn't you tell me? Like, why didn't you hook me up, man? Why are you being withholding of this info? Because I wouldn't do the same with you. Like, if I saw you were going in this direction, I would like bring some shit up and put some stuff under your face. So not yet. It's all been like, Ed, this is fucked up. you know, this is I don't know that I will ever buy this, but I really like your art.
I thought trigger warnings for everyone is a really good phrase.
That was the one when we were in the we were in that writing class. That came to mind right then and there, because I was maybe one of the last people to like read what my pitch was in class number 1, and everybody's going on these spiels about like write what you know, and we have a zookeeper lady who's writing a zookeeper fucking story and all this bullshit, and then it gets to Eddie P, and I'm like, trigger warnings, all of them. And
all of them, that's right. That's the right phrase.
Trigger warnings, all of them. Like, it's just across the board. If you're soft, get the fuck out of here. I don't even want your business. 2, I'm not writing what I know. I'm going to a dark place for fun. So, with those caveats, I will now tell you my story. You know, that was like how I opened up the whole shit.
That's pretty good. Depending on how these videos all play out, if you end up doing like an intro video or an intro piece to your story, that's something to keep in there.
Right. So when is this Carnegie Talk, man?
It is January 23rd. Yeah, I've gone to a couple recently. I've gone to some in the past. I saw like Jean Yun Yang there. Mm-hmm. They're usually authors, but occasionally a cartoonist rolls through. So I've been going to them and sort of gearing up for it. And I'm looking forward to it. It's been fun. That was something that I just started this week putting notes together for. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be good. I've been trying to figure out. I've got to see like if they record and publish them and stuff to make it available to everybody.
Yeah, you need to get one of the homies, man.
If they don't, then maybe I'll do a some kind of dry run, because I'm gonna have visuals that go with it. So I'll put together my own video if they don't.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it can't be hard to get a camera there to
I assume they
record the shit.
it all. So I just need to confirm that.
Yeah, but I'm saying like for your own, like we have, this is our town, man. We got people who can record this, mic you up, so that we could get the video immediately and not be beholden to anybody.
That's true.
And it should be on the Kayfabe channel, man.
Good point.
The internet world is a bigger world than Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Jimmy.
It has been fun going through like history, you know, like thinking of like what am I going to talk about, like how you get to this point, and finding like the artwork that I've made that fits all of those pieces.
Let's get that shit on the camera too.
That's what
man.
I'm saying. Like I'm looking forward to it. I always think we have an advantage as cartoonists, especially compared to authors.
Yeah.
I think we've said this before, like whether it's at book fairs or wherever, because like
we just look at that.
Yeah, there's 1,000 words behind me on the slide.
Yeah, quit looking at me. Get up there in front of people on a dais. Everybody's pointing at you. Don't look at me. Look at that. I'll say the words.
Well, it'll be good.
Jim, what else do you got, man? We got another minute or two.
I don't have much else. Any plans for Christmas, Ed? Or is there anything on the Christmas list for you this year?
Spending time with the fam, man, and it was a good year. So my closest loved ones should expect some good rewards.
That's nice. Yeah, I have nothing that I'm looking for gift-wise this year, which I guess is a good sign.
Meaning you don't have to buy anything, or
no, I'm not. I don't want anything. Like,
yeah,
you know,
we're men. We buy what we want.
Yes, there you go.
What the fuck?
It frustrates my wife a lot when I have no list for her, but it's kind of like, I don't know. Life is good. Let's just hang out.
It's always crazy to me, man, how like your girl can remember something you said 5 months ago about something that you like fantasize about or like wish you had, and you forgot about it because it might have even been on a whim. And then it shows up on Christmas. That's a pretty fucking cool thing. And then I feel real embarrassed, man. I'm like, oh man, I should pay attention a little more.
Yeah, I think you're all right. I think that's the way it's been for a while.
Yeah. It's accepted.
It has been a good year for comics though, so I think it'll be fun to see like the Instagrams, what everybody's unpacking Christmas morning comics wise.
For sure, man. And I think
that's when I'll know what I missed on my list.
I'm feeling like next week on the Kayfabe Weekly, man. Let's go send somebody this jacket, dude. This Akira jacket.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Right now, let's get out of here.
All right.
Kayfabers, like, subscribe, and follow the YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon. We'll let you know when the next vids are available.
You can find Cartoonist Kayfabe merch at the link below.
Jimmy and I have some comics to get busy with, man. You guys know what your marching orders are. Tell them, Jimmy.
They're different this week, Ed, because it's Christmas.
He pulled a swerve.
Gift someone a comic this week.